Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks so much for stopping by. Now today I'm doing 10 cards, 1 kit with the Simon Says stamp, July 2018 card kit. Lots to do, so we're going to jump in with our card number 1. I grabbed the sentiment that says, you bring on the sunshine or you bring the sunshine. I'm inking it up with some VersaFine ink. I'm going to stamp that on the very bottom of this panel here. This is just an A2 size piece of cardstock. Okay. Next, I cut down a strip of the yellow cardstock that came with the kit this month. I didn't create a card base with it. I decided to use it for some backgrounds. But I'm going to attach that to the very top portion of my sentiment. And then I wanted to use a piece of this pattern paper here. And I think these are pools, almost like a aerial view of some pools. So I'm just going to attach that to my panel. And then I'm going to take a stitched rectangle die and cut out the entire thing. Now, since the cardstock was super thick, I did have to use my scissors on the edges, but it cuts out beautifully and leaves me a little bit of a stitched line. Okay, and I believe this panel is 3.5 inches by 4 1/4. Next, we're going to stamp the sunshine. So I grabbed the center piece, and then the piece that has the smile, and then I also grabbed the sunglasses. I'm using my Distress Oxide. That was squeezed lemonade there. This is Spice Marmalade. I'm just going to go over it with the sun rays and stamp the happy face. And then I'm going to use my VersaFine ink and give my little sun here some sunglasses. Now when I did this, the ink, the oxide inks dulled down my color. And I didn't want to go over it with embossing powder, so I just rolled with it. I did use a circle die from my stash and cut out my sun. Now I'm going to just pop it up and place it right above the bring on my sentiment. Next, this month's kit came with some cute little stickers. So I'm grabbing the one that is almost like a hand-drawn heart. There's some gold ones and black ones. I wanted to use the black one. Okay, now I'm going to flip this panel over. I'm going to add some foam tape behind it. And then we're going to place that on an A2 size card base. Now to fix my sunglasses so it kind of flows nicer, I'm going to go over the top of them with some Nuvo crystal drops. This is Morning Dew. They'll dry clear, almost like a glossy accent. And then I am going to go around the sunshine and the inside of my little heart with my Nuvo glitter drops. This is White Blizzard. A little bit of sparkle there. And that finishes off card number 1. Here's close up. Okay, now we're going to move along to our second project. I'm going to trim down this wave pattern paper and just using my trimmer. And I also cut out a panel. This pattern paper is going to fit right on the inside. I wanted a little bit of a white border. So basically I'm matting the pattern paper on the white cardstock. If I can get this straight here. Okay, next we're going to grab the sentiment. Oh no, the glitter paper. Now I did a little experiment. I wanted to see what the Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink would do if you go over this beautiful glitter paper. I wanted to create like a sand effect, and it works beautifully. It does dull down the shimmer, but it does look quite a bit like sand, so I thought it would be fun to add this on the very bottom of my little scene. This month's kit also came with some double-sided foam, and I have to say I'm impressed with the foam because it is on the thicker side, and it's super duper sticky, but it die cuts beautifully. I didn't even have to use my shim plate. So I'm going to place my glitter paper right on top of a piece of the foam, and then just using a wave die I had in my stash, I cut out a little wave, and it cuts beautifully. Now for my sentiment, I chose Happy Birthday Fishes. I think that's what it says. I'm going to wishing you a happy birthday. I'll get it. But I'm going to stamp it directly on my pattern paper. I did have to stamp it a few times because it was the pattern paper. But now I'm going to add my little sand bottom right below there. we're going to save that other piece. We're not going to use it in another card, but in the future it'd be handy to have. Okay, now we're going to stamp a fish. The nice thing about the stamp set is there's one image and then there is one sentiment that goes with it on all of them. So I grabbed the fish and it goes perfectly with the sentiment, and we're going to make him a goldfish. So I just colored him in with my Copic markers. I did use my black Copic and went around the edges just to give him a finished look and to hide all my little fussy cutting errors. Now I'm going to add some foam tape, and then I wanted to do something a little extra special. I have a paper clip here. Now I'm going to create a fishing hook, and what I do is the loops that are on the bottom, I pull apart and kind of pull it up a little bit, and it creates a little loop on the very top portion. These are my nips that I use to cut my die cuts. I'm just trimming off the top of the paper clip and trimming down that bottom portion, and it creates a perfect little hook. So you can create a smaller hook and a larger hook just with the simple little paper clip. Now I'm punching a hole in my fish and adding my little fishing hook. I'll remove the backing off of my foam tape and place that on my little scene. And then I grab some black jute cord from my stash. I like the thin one, so it's pretty thin. I'm just going to thread it through the top portion of my little fishing hook, tie a knot, and then I'll trim off the excess. And then I'm going to loop the excess on the top portion behind my panel and then secure it with foam tape. I'm just going to add my panel to an A2 size card base, and I believe this card base was the pre-made card bases that came with the kit this month. Now for a few bells and whistles, there's little bubbles for the fish. There's 2 little sets. So I'm going to add a few here and there, just finishing off my scene. And then just to give it a little bit more dimension, I'm going to go over the center of those bubbles with some Nuvo jewel drops. These are White Blizzard. And that finishes off card number 2. Kind of a universal card, could be for a boy or a girl. Okay, for card number 3, we're going to stamp this cute little flamingo. Now I'm going to use my VersaFine ink, stamp him on a piece of white cardstock, and then I'm going to use some Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Gold embossing powder, and we're going to go ahead and heat set that and melt it. And I did color in my little flamingo with my Copic markers, but I love the golden pink. I think it turned out so pretty. Now I'm going to use the coordinating die that came in this month's kit and just cut out my flamingo. And then I'm also going to cut out a piece of the double-sided foam tape. Double-sided foam adhesive. I guess I do that in just a little bit. For my background, I created a panel. I believe this is 3.5 inches by 4 1/4, and I'm just shading it in with some worn lipstick, the entire back. Next, I'm going to use the center of the sun, and I'm going to stamp polka dots using some picked raspberry Distress Oxide ink, and then I went over it again with some of the worn lipstick, kind of creating almost a bokeh effect. But pink and flamingos just go so good together. I'm going to add a little bit of water to activate some of that ink, give it a little bit more texture. And then using a piece of the pattern paper, this is the one that had looks like ocean, but it had grid lines on it. I just used like an ocean wave die I had in my stash, and I cut out a small strip. This is going to go on the very bottom of my panel. My flamingo is going to be sitting in some water. Okay, here's where I go in with that double-sided foam adhesive. And this flamingo is very detailed, and I am so impressed at how it cuts beautifully, and it doesn't flatten. That's the nice part about the foam tape. But very, very sticky though. It did remove some of the sticky on my hands when I was trying to place it down. Not on this one. I made another flamingo card, but later on you'll see that. Okay, I placed my foam on my panel. I'm going to add my flamingo right on top of the foam. And this is perfect for mailing. It's not going to go flat. Now I decided to mat my background with a piece of white cardstock. And then I did add some coordinating baker's twine that matches my card base. This is the card base that came in the kit. I did just score and folded it to create this card base. I added a sticker from the sticker sheet for my sentiment. It says, "You've got style," and then I'm going to add a few little sequins around my little scene. Something a little bit different, but I like the outcome. That's it for card number 3. Now we're moving along to card number 4. I have a piece of white cardstock here. It's just a scrap piece, and we're going to do some stamping. I'm going to stamp 4 of the watermelon wedges. Now I went ahead and fussy cut those out and colored them in with my Copic markers again. Next, I'm going to use the red and white polka dot pattern paper, and then I'm attaching a strip of black cardstock that I grabbed from my stash. This is going to go down the bottom portion of my panel. Trim off the excess there. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment. This sentiment says, "You're one in a melon." I'm going to ink it up with some VersaFine ink and stamp that towards the top right. Now I'm going to add some foam tape. Actually, it was fun foam behind my panel. And for this card, I'm going to use the green card base. This is the green cardstock that came with the kit. And I just turned it into an A2 size card base. Red and green makes a perfect little melon, so I thought it'd be really, really nice. I'm going to add a few of the little black hearts that came in the sticker sheet. Maybe right here's great. Lovely. And you can see I popped up my melons, and then I kind of arranged them like in a little melon flower. And then I used my Copics to color in the center of those stickers. The clear, I turned them into little red hearts. But that's it for card number 4. Now for card number 5, we're going to do some stamping. I wanted to stamp the watermelon here. Now I'm going to ink it up with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm going to stamp the whole pineapple. Did I say watermelon? I meant pineapple. And then 2 of the pineapple tops. I just colored them in with my Copics again, and then I fussy cut those out. Now I grabbed the sentiment, and I believe the sentiment says, "You're one cool pineapple." I cut out a banner using some white cardstock from my stash, and this is where my sentiment's going to go. Now to color it in, I decided to use my oxide inks. This is fossilized amber, and I'm going to go over the entire top of my sentiment. And then I want to give it a little bit of a gradient, so I'm going to just use a little bit of vintage photo towards the bottom. And this is oxide ink as well. And then just so it blends really well, I'm going to add a little bit more of the fossilized amber. And it creates a real nice pineapple colored sentiment. Okay. Now I'm going to add some foam squares behind my pineapple. I found that this kit was a little bit challenging for me because you have the stamps that all went together, but then you had the ocean kind of themed paper pad, and then you had the flamingo. Everything was kind of separated, so I found myself a little bit challenged, but challenges are good. It kind of makes you a stronger crafter, I guess. But I'm going to pop up my pineapple and add one of the leaves behind it, and then just using my tape runner, I'm going to adhere that right behind my fishtail banner here. Okay. Next, I'm going to grab a piece of the yellow cardstock that came in the kit. I just trimmed it down. I believe this panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4. It's going to leave me a little bit of a border around my card base. I ran around the edges with some Distress Oxide ink. I believe it was Vintage Photo. And then I decided to give this a little bit of background. So I'm taking some Unicorn ink by Hero Arts. It's a pigment ink and it gives a nice little subtle effect. And I'm taking the pineapple and I'm going to fill in my entire background with a bunch of pineapples. Now I was going to use Versamark ink, but against that yellow it didn't stand out as much as I wanted it, but the unicorn ink worked beautifully. So that's my background. I just attached it to an A2 size card base. I popped up my fishtail banner, and we're going to place that to the left on our card front here. Lovely. Now I'm going to add a few of the little sequins. The sequins were so pretty. Oh my goodness. But I'm adding a little bit of Wink Stella to my pineapple, a little more shimmer, and then I did go around the pineapple sentiment, just a little sparkle. Now I had to be careful when I did this because the oxide ink wanted to blend with the Wink Stella. So you just got to make sure you stay on the lines. But that's it for that card. Card number 5. I think that's probably my favorite. Okay, card number 6, I stamped and fussy cut out the 2 cacti that were in the stamp set. Those are ready to go. And then I cut out a panel with some Nina Desert Storm cardstock. And then this is the pattern paper. And then a piece of vellum using a circle die from my stash. We're going to layer these 2 pieces together to create a nice little background. And then I'm going to add a piece of vellum on this panel to kind of to tone down the pattern paper and also to have a little bit of a home for my sentiment. I really wanted it to stand out. The sentiment says "Stuck on You." So I'm going to just stamp it using an acrylic block here. I'm going to just use my anti-static powder tool on that vellum so it doesn't stick. I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark ink and stamp that right on the top of my vellum. Now I did go over the top with some C&CT Stamp Fine Detail White embossing powder. And it looks fantastic, and I went ahead and melted that. Now for this cactus I glued directly to the vellum. This one I'm going to add some foam squares and we're going to pop that up. I'm just using my tape runner on the back side of the vellum where the sentiment is and where the cactus is. That way you can't see it through the vellum. And then we're going to layer 2 of the cacti together. And I think that looks fun. We're going to flip this panel over. I did add some foam tape behind it, and we're going to place that on one of the card bases that came with the kit. It was a pre-scored side folding A2 size card base. And then just to give my cacti a little bit of girliness, I guess, we're going to add 2 of the little flowers. And I think that turned out cute as a bell. That's card number 6. Now moving along to card number 7, I have a strip of white cardstock here. Now I wanted to use one of the sentiments, and I like the one that says "You made my day." So I'm going to do something a little different though. I'm going to actually use my scissors and trim the words apart, and then I'm going to layer them on the white cardstock. Now I originally was going to go the entire length, but I should have moved my U over to the left a little bit. I kind of ran out of room. So the day will be on a separate strip, but I just trimmed them down. And then next I cut out a panel here with white cardstock, and then I did create a frame with my rounded rectangle dies. Now I'm just kind of figuring out my sentiment placement, and I'm thinking the day will go all the way to the left. So I'm going to fishtail the ends on the right hand side, and I'm going to attach them right under my frame. Any excess that's overhanging, I'm just going to trim off. And then I just had to do a little bit of shading. So, well, I'm going to pop up my frame first. I'm just using some thin strips of foam tape to pop it up. But here's where I do my shading. I'm going to go in with some worn lipstick. And then to soften it just a bit, I'm going to grab the leftover ink from my fossilized amber and add a little bit of color, kind of turning it a real pretty coral color. now I want to use some of those stickers. Now, these to me look like lemons, but then the more I looked at it, I thought, well, they could really be little fishies if you dotted an I, but we're going to make a lemon card. Okay, so I grabbed all of the little lemon stickers with the pink leaves, and then there's the same little lemon fishies that are in the puffy sticker sheet that came with the kit. So I'm just going to add a few around my little scene. Lovely. One more. We're going to use them all. Okay, now I did add a few little white drops with my Nuvo Simply White crystal drops, and then this is going to go in the center of an A2 size card base. It's a side folding one from my stash, and that finishes off card number 7. Kind of soft, kind of a little bit different, especially with those pink leaves. Okay, I left the measurements of the pieces of paper I'm using here. So I'm going to adhere, this is the green cardstock that came with the kit. I'm going to attach that to my panel there. And I did cut out a strip of it's almost like a wood flooring, I would say, or some kind of a wood pattern paper. I'm going to add a strip of white to that. Okay, now I stamped the sentiment. I grabbed one from my stash. It says hello there, and that's exactly what my little buddy is doing. She came across to say hello. I'm going to trim off the excess. Okay, and then we're going to use the sticker sheet. There was a few little birds in there, so I grabbed 2 of them that kind of coordinated with my little paper. She wants to play. That's my little buddy. Her name's Chance. She is something else. She's a little booger. But those are my 2 birds that I chose. Now I'm placing them on white cardstock, and then I'm just going to fussy cut them out using my scissors. Now I did decide to go in, I'm going to pop these up with some foam squares, but I decided to take some natural twine. I doubled it up and then tied a bow toward the left of my panel around that white strip that I had made in the middle. And just trying to figure out my placements for my little birds, I decided to add some fun foam behind this panel, and then this is going to go on my card base here, and I believe I used the last pre-made one, so this is going to open, it's going to be a top opening, but I added a few of my Simply White, no, I guess I didn't. I'm going to add a few sequins. You can see I arranged my birds there. And that finishes off card number 8. Kind of simple, but kind of cute. Now moving along to card number 9, we're going to use some more stickers because we're running out of stamps. So I grabbed some butterflies and a piece of vellum. The vellum that I use is from Hero Arts, and it's a 140-pound vellum, so it's pretty heavy weight. And I thought it'd be nice to cut my fussy cut out my butterflies with the vellum to give them a little bit of stability, and then I'm also going to layer them together. So I end up grabbing 6 of the butterflies. I want to make sure I grab the ones that have the black centers. And when I did fussy cut them out, I kind of left the antenna. I figured I could draw those in with black marker. But I'm picking some, we're going to use the pink cardstock that came in the kit, so I'm grabbing mostly pink butterflies. Okay, just fussy cutting those out, and then we're going to layer them together. Well, oh, I grabbed the sentiment. It says, "You are beautiful." That's going to go towards the bottom of my little panel here. Lovely. And then here's where I go in, and just using a glue dot, I'm going to layer 2 of them together. Now I'm just going to fold them in half to give them a little bit of dimension and stick them one on top of the other. And you can see I didn't add the antenna. I did go in later on and use my black marker to draw the antenna in. But I ended up only using 2 of the butterflies. This is my card base I created with the doll pink cardstock, just placing my panel in the center. And I just couldn't fit that other one, so I just decided to go with those two. I did end up putting that third one on the inside. I added a few sequins, and that finishes off card number 9. Kind of an easy peasy card, but turned out cute. Okay, now we're going to move along to card number 10. Card number 10, I had to use the flamingo. Now the flamingo I thought was so pretty with the gold and the pink, so we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to do a little bit of layering. So I grabbed a piece of Inky Dinky Doo's masking paper, and I just trimmed out the top part of the flamingo. We're going to use that as a mask. Next, I'm just taking my Memento ink and stamping the sentiment on a piece of white cardstock toward the top. Now it didn't stamp beautifully, and I didn't care really because I'm actually just using that for a temporary placement. I'm actually going to end up fussy cutting that out. I'm just going to use my anti-static powder tool and then just kind of arrange my flamingos on this paper. I stamped one, I'm going to mask it off, and then I'll stamp another. And here's where that sentiment, why I stamped the very top sentiment. I just didn't want the flamingos, I wanted enough room for my sentiment. Stamping one more. And then I'm actually going to fussy cut out just the top portion of the flamingos. So I decided to stamp 2 more. One over here to the left and then one over to the right. That way, when I fussy cut out just the top portion of this panel, it would look a little bit more finished. I'll have something to go as my guide to cut around. One more. There we go. Now I'm going to go over my flamingos again with the gold embossing powder. This is Simon Says Stamps gold. I forget. I'm not sure the exact name of it, but it's just so pretty. I love the shine that it gives. Now I am going to, again, fussy cut out just the top portion of my flamingos, and then I did color each of those in with my Copic markers. And I think those 2 colors just look so fun. Now you can see here on the right, I stamped and colored in and heat embossed with gold another flamingo. I thought we'll add a little bit of dimension to this panel here. So I decided to take my gray Copic marker and kind of ground those flamingos. I used the gray, but in hindsight, maybe I should have used the blue. I think that would have looked pretty. Okay, I'm going to die cut out this flamingo and also another piece of the Sizzix double-sided foam sheets here. And here's where it cuts so nice. But I should have adhered I should have used the release paper on the back side and adhered my flamingo to my panel like I did in card 1, but I kind of did it the opposite, so the adhesive kept sticking to my hands. That's a good problem, I think, because that means it's gonna stick really good. So I cut out a panel. This panel is, I believe, 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm just taping my little scene directly on the bottom. I'm going to eventually use some foam tape behind the heads of my flamingos for a little bit of dimension. Now I decided to stamp my sentiment with my VersaFine ink on the very top, and then I'm going to go over it again with my gold embossing powder. Now when I used my VersaFine ink, the onyx black against the gold, you can't even tell that I used black ink. I can tell where it's easy for me to see where to add the embossing powder. That's why I use the VersaFine. But when you melt it, it makes a beautiful gold. So that's my little scene, and you could see add foam tape right behind the flamingo's heads. I'm going to add my single individual flamingo and just place him in the little flock. Even stuck to my nail. That's sticky stuff. Okay, I think that looks so pretty. I love the pink and gold. I just fell in love with that. Okay, I'm going to flip this panel over and just use some foam tape behind it. And then I did decide to use the leftover piece of my pink glitter paper. I'm just going to use my tape runner and adhere that to my card base. And this is an A2 size card base. Just going to line it up, and then any excess overhanging, I'll use my scissors and just trim that off. That way you have a little bit, my panel is only going to leave me about a little less than a quarter, I think maybe 1/8 of an inch around my card base. So you'll just see a little bit of the shimmer. I'll just remove the release paper off my foam tape and place that on my card base. And that's card number 10. I think that's another pretty one. I really like the pink. But here's a close-up. Now we're going to take a look at all 10 cards that I made today with the Simon Says stamp July 2018 card kit. I'm not sure if kits are available, guys, but I will leave links below for you in the description area in case you're interested. For me, I get the Simon Says stamp subscriptions. I get them every month. It just makes it easier, and then that way when a kit does come out, I'm sure to grab it and then don't have to worry about them being out of stock. So I'll leave the subscription page down below for you too. But you can see here all the cards are very different. There's not really a theme with this card kit. Well, I guess there is. Let's take that back. It's a summer theme, and it's so fun and pretty. But I hope this gives you some ideas on how to use it. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic weekend, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.